Hey guys, how are you doing today? Today we're going to talk about a topic which is quite interesting and pretty unexplored at the same time, which is the long-term and short-term advantages in chess. Okay, so I will not go into a long list of mentioning each of them. So, but just to give you an idea, short-term advantages are anything that you can exploit quickly in a game. So you can probably guess that this would relate to something like a quick attack initiative. So it is something that also in the opening to have more development. This is something that it is something that doesn't last for a long time, because if you sit and wait, your opponent will develop his pieces and will catch up with development. And long-term advantages is anything that you can exploit in the long run. So we can start with the easiest one, which is a material advantage. For example, if you're a pawn up or a piece up, you can exploit that easily in an ending. Also, something with structural advantages, when you have a better pawn structure, for example. Also, having better pieces. Normal, for example, to have the bishop pair against bishop and knight in an open position, that would be a long-term advantage. So today we're going to check a few examples and try to analyze all of them with this perspective of long-term versus short-term advantages. So we will start with the first clear-cut example, where we can see the position where white is a pawn down, but white has a massive advantage in development. So white has, if we count all the pieces developed, we see that white has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 pieces developed, whereas black has only two, the bishop and the queen. So in this position, actually, if we go back a move, here black had played the move e5, attacking the bishop. And here, instead of playing a natural move like bishop to g3, for example, where black would just develop with knight h6 and castle, and kind of trying to exploit the pawn advantage in the long run, here that's why white had to exploit the advantage quickly. And that's why white played another attacking move, which is queen d6, which is a great move. So here basically white has to do something quickly. So white has a short-term advantage, right? He has a development, and he also has the initiative. So this is another short-term advantage. Initiative normally is something that if you don't exploit it quickly, so it could fizzle out. So that's why here, after queen d6, white is attacking the pawn on e5, and black it's actually lost here. Well, one idea is rook to d1, and give checkmate if queen takes e3, for example, which is what was played in the game. So another alternative, taking the pawn on e5, then knight d5 opens the position for the rook after taking, and white guess basically will checkmate the opponent's king. So after queen takes c3, rook ed1, knight d7. Here came another attacking move. So this is reminds me of a quote by William Steinitz, who says that only the player with the initiative has the right to attack. So here, that's why moves like bishop takes f7, they come easily. They're just he's not just gambling a bishop, but basically the moves will come naturally because of the position that white has. So white understands that he has a short-term advantage, so he has to play very energetically. So after king takes f7, knight g5, king e8, queen e6. Here black resigned because it's gonna be checkmate. After a move like knight to e7, queen f7, king d8, knight e6 is checkmate. Okay, so what I want to do now is to analyze an opening line based on this principle of long-term and short-term advantages, and that's why I picked up this very sharp line, which is the poison pawn in the Najdorf variation. So the Najdorf variation goes after e4, c5, knight f3, d6, d4, c takes d4, knight takes d4, knight f6, knight c3, a6, and here comes bishop g5, e6, f4, and here comes queen to b6. So it's an aggressive move by black, and here white can play knight to b3 and keep the pawn, but queen d2 is another sharp move. So after taking the pawn, here comes rook b1, so queen to a3. Okay, so we see that it is a bit similar to the game and that we checked before, and we see that white has more development. So white just developed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces, and black only has 2 pieces developed. So that's why short-term advantage. So we see that white has development, black has a long-term advantage, which is a pawn. So that's why, based on this logic, white has to play energetically. So if we check the main line, comes f5. So it's a move that makes sense because white has to try to exploit his advantage quickly. Otherwise, he even risks being worse in the long run, because here he's a pawn down. So that's why this move makes sense. Here black's knight c6 develops, tries to catch up with development. Here white takes on e6. The idea is to open lines to attack. f6, knight takes e6, bc, and here, okay, the main move here is e5. So it's again a move which white tries to open up the position again even more, even giving another pawn. And after taking on e5, so knight d5 is an alternative, but the main line is taking on e5. And here white takes on f6. The point is that after g takes, knight to e4 is already attacking. We see that white again is more developed, 3 pieces here against 1 piece developed by black. And here bishop e7 defends on f6, bishop e2, planning bishop h5, looking at the king, h5, rook to b3, queen a4, and here comes another. So here we are getting far away, but just to illustrate this line, one of the main moves here is taking on f6, this kind of crazy move. But again, so we can see that here in long-term advantage by black, so he has his 2 pawns up, and he has the bishop pair, so in an ending he would be great, black here. All the dark squares are taken by black, so this is why white has to do something pretty kind of quick or even desperate. That's why one move here is taken on f6. Okay, I don't want to analyze this whole line deeply. Even nowadays, even the best players, they play this line and they don't know the ultimate truth of this line. But here, taking on f6, the point is that after taking on c4, rook a7, just to bring a piece to defend, castle. So we see that in this line, which is extremely sharp, white is just a full piece down and a pawn, but he has all the potential to attack the king. So and here actually he's already, we see that all of white pieces are pretty much all of white pieces are more active. So that's why material here it's not so. I mean, it is critical, but not in the short run. The game will probably be decided by an attack, or if black defends, he will consolidate and try to impose his advantage in the ending. So that's why I wanted to check 2 games from this line, from this poison pawn variation. One where white wins and another one where black wins, to see how each side manages to implement his strategy. So the first game is a game between Kasparov and Mageramov. So Kasparov, he was an expert on this line, mainly on the black side, but we know that Kasparov is also very good attacking, so that's why we'll see this line on where he wins with white. So here he didn't play the exact same line of e5, so here white is only 1 pawn down. But again here we see that it is quite important to remark that here in an ending, for example, white will be pretty much doomed, because again he's 1 pawn down here where it's 1 or 2, but he's materially down, and also black has these very strong bishops, not now but in the ending they can be very strong. So that's why it is quite important for white either here pretty much has to attack or win material, maybe by trapping the queen, but he cannot just play, you know, easy moves. So just quiet moves, he just can't do that. So that's why here Kasparov played the move e5, which again follows the same principle. So we checked this line before, so e5, just opening lines, and here played d takes is not possible because white will just capture on d7, and after f e5, knight to e4, he pretty much followed the same plan. Queen b4, white has multiple threats. One of them is just to knight bc5, attacking the queen, followed by knight f6 and capturing the queen. Queen b4, so this is a logical move. Black wants to impose his long-term advantage by exchanging queens, but after knight f6, king d8, c3, again white queen keeps the queen just to win by an attack. Queen b6 and rook to d3. So here just looking at either the pawn or the bishop. Here this position is first of all extremely difficult to play by as black, and here after black made the decisive mistake with bishop to e7. But here the move knight to b8 apparently was given, at least by my engine, but again it's very sad move to defend like that, but apparently it seems to be holding the position. But after bishop to e7, here comes the move. Well, actually you can pause the video and find the winning attacking move. So here the winning move is rook takes d6. Just opening the file, so we see this triple pieces on d file. They're pretty nice. And here black took on f6, but the point was after taking on d6, queen takes d6. Well, rook c7. The point is that queen c7. This is a nice point. That then after taking, this is a nice pattern and nice checkmate. And after rook d6, knight takes d7. White gets the material back and it's still attacking the king. So, and after bishop takes f6, then here comes, instead of taking on d7, here comes another, I would say, typical move by Garry Kasparov, just attacking and opening rook takes e6 and opening the line for the queen. And after rook c7, rook f6, h4, bishop g4, then white is collecting more material. So queen b6, rook f7, knight b8, f5, queen e5, knight d4, bringing another piece. So we see, well, actually here white is even a pawn down, so it's an attacking, so the game is pretty much over. And here comes another nice attacking move, knight f5, rook c3, knight d6, king d8, and rook takes 7, and here black resigned. The point being that taking on d7, knight f7 picks up the queen. So here we have another position. It is black to play, so this was the game between Short and Kasparov. Actually was played in the World Championship in 1993. And we see that in this position, if we compare it to the previous one, we see that black has a better version here, because I mean, at least white is not doubled so far on the d file. and e5 doesn't come too quick here. And here Kasparov played the move queen to b4. So again, black having the long-term advantage, wants to simplify the position, get in a winning ending or middle game. Actually, even if we exchange queens, it would be a middle game, but would be a quieter middle game. So the one of the main problems that black has here is his king. So this is kind of a middle-term problem, or could be long-term, an exposed king. So that would depend. Sometimes if the king can run away or can castle quickly, so then it's a short-term problem. But here is so that's why here black wants to exchange queens in these lines. And here also white gets an attack on e4. And here short actually played in the spirit of the position, which is to keep on attacking, keeping the tension. He played the move c3 instead of queen d3. So he wants to give another pawn in order to open the position. And now black has is 2 pawns up. So after bishop d3, queen a4. But he's now trying to either to now he improved his bishop a bit, and now he will also try to attack the queen. But this gives another resource when you're material ahead. You have this resource to give back material in order to simplify the position. So after knight c4, rook c6, rook c7, knight b6 was the threat. Rook c7, knight b6 played anyway, queen a3, rook a1, knight d7. And after knight c4, here comes the move rook takes c4. So basically black starts to give back some material. Queen e4 was not a serious move because white would just take on d6. Not only even winning material, because after king d8, knight takes f7, but just black cannot afford to have his king attacked here. So after rook takes e4, bishop takes. So we see that here black has the exchange. So materially speaking, actually black is still doing fine because he has 2 pawns for the exchange, and also again has this potentially very powerful bishop pair, this long-term advantage. So that's why white still has to be attacking. So his main asset here is to attack. After h4, bishop d3, f5, bishop e2, bishop g7, c4, h3, g3. So this is an interesting point, typical of the Sicilian. Black doesn't hurry to attack because he might his king might even be better so far on e8, and the rook still has some activity here. He's creating also a strong pawn in the ending. So again, black is counting on his long-term trumps. And here comes d5, which is interesting. Black is opening the position for his bishops. And here short made another mistake with bishop to f3. He kind of, it is understandable that it is in the spirit of the position to play for initiative, but here he went a bit too far ahead. He had to take maybe on d5, and after taking d5, I know that black is doing more than fine, but I think that this position has to be played, because after bishop f3, take on c4, just giving a pawn, rook e3, he's trying to complicate matters. But here Kasparov made an interesting decision. He played the move c3, but he could actually he could have taken on b3, and after rook b3, queen c5, rook takes b7, knight d5. He's a piece. He's materially up. He has 2 minor pieces for a rook, but he wanted to play it safely. I'm not sure if he was in time trouble here. And here short took on c3. Again, short is giving material all the time, but this is kind of simplifying the position so far, because he's giving pieces away in this process, and he's not getting an attack. So but the alternative, queen c2 and again queen b2, This is again a move that I like because black wants to go for an ending. He wants to go for a long-term advantage, and after taking on b2, bishop b7, bishop b5, even though white material is fine, yes, he's an exchange up. These two bishops are, as we could see, two monsters. So we could see that from the beginning. So these are kind of sleepy bishops. To here, we see to this variation, we see how this bishop, all the potential that they have. So this is a long-term advantage that black has. And here, after taking on c3, here Gary took on c3, and after casting finally, black is just some material up, so he's a pawn up, right? If I go 1, 2, sorry, he's two pawns ahead, so black is doing fine here. Rook g1, rook c8, queen f6, bishop c6, just exchanging queens. So again, Kasparov plays logically based on his long-term advantage. He wants to go for an ending or just exchange as many pieces as he can. White is only counting on an attack. And after g4, knight g6, black gives a pawn, but we get less and less pieces on the board. Queen c2, and we see that even now white skins is also a bit exposed. So f5, rook c3, queen g4, rook b4, and after taking on g6, queen c6, here short resigned. He basically has to go for a lost rook ending after queen g2, because rook g2 is not possible on account of rook to b1. Okay, so these examples that we saw, they are kind of clear cut in the sense that one side has maybe short-term advantages, the other side has long-term advantages. But I also want to check some mixed cases, some cases where you can have, sometimes you can have a bad pawn structure, but you can have something in return, maybe a pawn up or maybe an attack, and which is the case that we can see in this game between Topalov and Aronian. So here white has these two pawns, which don't look very fancy. On maybe the c4 pawn is doing a good job controlling d5, but we see that these pawns, for example, in a pure rook ending or even a king ending or knight ending, for example, they could be very weak. But on the other hand, here white has the bishop pair, right? The position is pretty open. We see all the white squares are open. So white has this kind of advantage, and this is I really like how Topalov played this position, because we know that he's a very dynamic player, and here he plays the move f4. So, and after taking on f4, rook takes f4, we see that he gets another potentially, another long-term weakness, which is the pawn on e2. So we see all these three pawns that they might look a bit miserable, but on the other hand, white has very, very good pieces. So he's completely compensating all that. Actually, he even got the better position, as we'll see. After a5, also he has this development advantage. He might have this development advantage because black has some problems developing his bishop, and after queen e7, queen e5, taking on e5, bishop e3, we see that now we see the true potential of these two bishops just attacking the queenside pawns. Knight d7, rook e4, rook a6. This is a clever way to develop the rook. Rook b1, just putting pressure on the pawns. Rook g6, rook e7. So here we see that pretty much all of white pieces are more active. So black might have a good pawn structure, and also these weak pawns, they also compensate for these open lines for the rooks. b6, bishop f4, h5, bishop e4. So we see that now this black is attacking the white is attacking the rook e6, and here black manages to exchange pieces, but at the cost of having a weaker pawn structure. 6, bishop f6, rook d1, king f7, bishop f4, king g8, bishop c7, rook f7, and here comes the move bishop g6, and after a4, the point here is that after rook f4, bishop e8 will just start collecting material, collecting the pawns. a4, bishop h5, knight f6, and here white easily won the game. It's an exchange up, so here actually Aronian resigned. Okay, so I hope that you enjoyed the lesson. I went a bit deep, or at least we checked many examples. So the main point is that in a game you have long-term advantages and short-term disadvantages. So that's why you need to find your advantages. So if they are long-term, you will decide your play based on that, and if they are short-term, you will decide how you should play based on that. So you should not just find moves too creatively. Sometimes basically the position will tell you how to play, as we see in the poison pawn games, how Kasparov, when he was white, he knows that he has short-term advantages there. He has to attack very energetically. When he was black, he was in a way defending, maybe creatively, by giving material, by just finding resources, but he was in a way defending, so he was not attacking no matter what. So in this first example we see how the move e5, so here he has to go for the kill because he has the short-term advantage. And in this game we see how he goes for moves like queen b4. He picks material not just for the sake of it, but just to later on give it back. So and last but not least, there's a course by GM Igor Smirnov that I strongly suggest to study about, to go deeper in this topic, which is the course Your Winning Plan, which will give you a system for your middle game planning. Okay, so this lesson was pretty long, but I think that you can get even deeper if you study a course where you also have a practical part, so you can also test your skills. So that's it for today, guys. I hope that you enjoyed the lesson, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye bye.